Hello, how's it going? It's me again. Don't really have a plan for this video, but I just wanted to ramble a little bit about a build that I've been theory crafting for 3.19 Lake of Kalandra, and this is a self-cast Shock Nova Trickster that can be played either low life or CI. Don't know if I'm going to league start with this, but I definitely want to give this a try at some point because the numbers are looking kind of good, and just thought I'd make this video to kind of talk about it and stuff. So yeah, it's not really much to it. It's just self-cast Shock Nova. So Shock Nova, and then you stack Intensify to get more damage. You can get 4 stacks of Intensify, and then Spell Echo to cast faster, and then a bunch of supports to give reduced mana cost and damage. And then for the Trickster Ascendancy, we take Escape Artist, of course, get Evasion and Energy Shield, Soul Drinker to get Energy Shield Overleach, which is going to be the main source of defense, given that we have 7k ES with this build. So if you invest into Energy Shield Overleach, Ghost Reaver, and take the Ethereal Feast Wheel and the Mysticism and the Light Eater Wheel, you can actually get like 3.7k Energy Shield Leech per second, which you can additionally boost with things like a belt mod on Shaper or Crusader belts that gives increased Energy Shield recovery rate. So that's like pretty good defense, right? You get 7k ES with 3.7k leech per second. I think that's pretty good. And then we, of course, take Polymath, which gives us a lot of damage because we take 11 masteries with this tree. And then also Swift Killer, giving frenzy charges. The most important thing that this gives actually is the 200% charge duration, which is really good because what you can do, and I actually tested this, if you have 200% increased charge duration, your frenzy charge lasts 30 seconds because 10 seconds is the default. And then you can actually take this chest mod, gain a frenzy charge every 15 seconds, and it basically keeps you at max frenzy charges like permanently. Like unless an enemy steals it, like you're gonna have it permanently. And taking that makes it so that you can always be at max frenzies without having to take charge mastery, which would burn you like 5 skill points or like maybe even more. So it's actually pretty good. And the way we generate frenzy charges is we run a 3-link frenzy. Frenzy, additional accuracy, faster attacks. So basically in the start of a map or like at the start of a boss fight, you would just like cast frenzy 5 times, which should be pretty fast because it has a 4.07 attack rate. So you take like 1 second to cast frenzy and you basically have 5 frenzy charges permanently, which is really cool. And then yeah, other than that, the build's pretty straightforward. Just get a bunch of ES. This build has 7k ES with like 1000 life for the low life build, and then you just take a bunch of spell damage and lightning damage. You know, this is elemental overload. I just think it's really synergistic to run EO with lightning skills because you get lightning damage with non-crits is lucky from the ascendancy. I mean from the mastery. And then yeah, you just stack a bunch of cast speed. And I think Trickster is like sleeper OP for self-cast builds because if you see here, Soul Drinker gives you 20% increased cast speed while leeching, and you're always leeching. So that's cool. It's like perma onslaught for cast speed. And then you have +2 max frenzies with 5 perma frenzies. That's like 20% more damage with 20% increased cast speed. So that's pretty cool. And other than that, you just try to take as much cast speed as you can on the tree, which you can actually take a bunch of cast speed. So like with this setup, like if you don't have Onslaught, yeah, Onslaught's off right now. Without Onslaught, you actually get like 6.2 cast rate with Spell Echo, which means 3.1 cast rate without Spell Echo. Or 3.1, that is like, you know, actually you only have to pay mana for 3.1 of the cast rate, but the actual cast rate is 6.2. One thing to note here is your Intensify stacks will only gain with every 2 casts if you run Spell Echo, but I think it's okay because with 6.2 cast speed, you're going to be at 4 intensity stacks in 1.3 seconds approximately, which is actually pretty good. Like if you have 7k ES, chances are you're going to be able to stand still for 1.3 seconds, right? Considering you have 3.7k leech as well. So yeah, it's basically the build. And then for defense, we're going to be making use of course, Overleech, but also Escape Artist. So Escape Artist is cool because it allows you to get evasion and energy shield together. So if you take a sadist garb, which I believe is best in slot for Trickster, you actually can get a substantial amount of ES and energy shield with something like this. And then you get like a hubris helmet or a crown of the inward eye, and you end up getting a lot of damage and a lot of ES and a lot of evasion. And then what you can actually do is run Grace on the side of this, and you actually end up with 18k evasion without a Jade Flask. Pop Jade Flask goes up to 22k. So 18k evasion is 69% chance to evade, which is pretty cool. And then of course you combine that with Ghost Dancer, and you end up having a Ghost Dance that replenishes 3% of your evasion rating, which in this case is like 600. So you basically have like 3 instances of replenish 600 ES when you get hit, on top of the Overleech, which I mentioned a lot already. So that's pretty cool. It's pretty good mitigation against attacks. High evasion, high energy shield. I couldn't really figure out a way to get spell block or spell mitigation in this build though, because after the suppression nerfs, I found that it just takes way too much investment to get suppression, and it just feels really bad to take like 2 suppression wheels in addition to needing it on every item. It just seemed a bit excessive to me. So I ended up going for dual wielding wands, which is interesting because not only does it give you really good damage to dual wield wands, but you can also take dual wielding mastery, which trades your inherent 15% chance to block attack for 15% chance to block spells. So that's pretty cool. So you take this and you get like spell damage and block, and then you take this Mystic Bulwark to get more block and mana regen, and then, you know, dual wielding also gives you this wheel here, Mysticism, which gives you additional damage and cast speed and mana regen. So it's pretty good. It's kind of a shame that if you go dual wielding, it seems like the most spell block that you can get from the tree is 31%. It's kind of sad. But if you search for this here, you'll see that all the sources of spell block are actually just like, you know, while holding a shield, while holding a staff, shield, or staff. Like, it's actually kind of sad because you can't really get too much spell block if you're dual wielding wands. The most I was able to come up with is 31%. But I mean, it is what it is. You could also like run Tempest Shield maybe, but I didn't really want to drop my life that low because this is a low life build without shavs. And it's important not to use shavs in this build because you need a rare body armor so you can gain a frenzy charge every 15 seconds to make use of the Swift Killer notable. So no shavs in this build. Oh yeah, and then because you're no shavs, you need to take 30% of chaos damage does not bypass ES, and then get chaos res on all your gear. And if you can get 75% chaos res with this chaos damage does not bypass ES mastery, you can actually get like 5.5k chaos max hit, which is actually pretty decent. If you think about it, 5.5k chaos max hit is like playing a 10k life character with negative 60 chaos res, which I've played 4k life characters with negative 60 chaos res, and that was fine. So you probably don't even need to cap your chaos res, but yeah, like definitely viable to do this without shavs in my opinion. Maybe not against like certain Ubers, but generally speaking, I think it should be fine. Yeah, what else is there to talk about? It's basically it. Just self-cast Shock Nova, cast speed, spell damage, evasion to mitigate against attacks, spell block to mitigate against spells. Other than that, defense is mostly just having a high ES pool with 7k ES and 1k life. It's kind of like 8k EHP, kind of, so it's pretty decent. The weaknesses are, of course, that you only have 30% spell block and your evasion is only 70%, which is like not great. And of course, your armor is like nothing, right? We have like 11% phys reduction from armor, which is not great. But I think it hopefully should be fine because of the high ES pool and overleach. I guess I can talk about just like, so that's basically the tree. It's pretty straightforward. As for skills, it's just, you know, Shock Nova, Intensify, Spell Echo with like 3 damage links. I took Inspiration to reduce the mana cost because that turned out to be a problem. And for those of you who don't know, Shock Nova actually hits twice. And this was actually confirmed by a Triple G employee on Reddit in some old thread, but basically Shock Nova, it actually, in one cast, it creates 2 instances of damage. It creates a ring of lightning, which hits, and then a larger ring of lightning, which also hits. So one cast of Shock Nova hits twice, so that's why we put this count here to be 2, because it hits twice. And then other than that, you just have like a 4-link Orb of Storms to, you know, give you additional damage, I guess. And then try to put Arcane Surge in there as well. For the auras, we're running Wrath, obviously, for 22% more spell damage. Grace for the evasion. Without that, we have no evasion. And then Clarity level 20 to help sustain mana. And I also had the idea to run Val Haste as kind of like a pseudo blessing. Because now that you can't run Blessing, you know, like you need something to increase your damage. So you can just like pop Val Haste, gives you like a lot more damage. It gives you like 15% more damage, which is actually pretty cool, considering this build only has 1 Val skill, which is Val Haste. If you're running a low life variant, you're going to want to do Arrogance Discipline, and then you're going to want to take the Reservation Mastery, 20% reduced life reservation efficiency, or rather 20% increased life reservation efficiency, and that should greatly increase your max hit compared to if you didn't have it. And then yeah, other than that, you just kind of take whatever, you know, cast when damage taken, Immortal Call, dash with Arcane Surge. We can run dash because we have a lot of decks with this pathing and with Attributes Mastery up here, and then Arcane Surge on dash to keep up your damage and mapping, and then of course the 3-link Frenzy to make use of Swift Killer. So it's pretty straightforward. And then for the gear, you just dual wield wands to get maximum damage and spell block. You just get wands with like generic spell damage, lightning damage, plus level 2 Shock Nova, you know. For the helmet, I think Crown is really good because Transfiguration of Mind, or is it Mind? I think it's Transfiguration of Soul. Transfiguration of Soul allows increases to Energy Shield to also benefit spell damage. So of course that's like completely insane for this build. This item alone gives me like 500k DPS, so that's pretty cool. If you don't have this, you can just use a Hubris, not the end of the world. It's pretty decent as well, and actually gives you more evasion because of Escape Artist from Trickster. You just want ES on your helmet. Other than that, you know, Sadist Garb, best in slot for providing Energy Shield and evasion for Trickster. Gloves and boots are just going to be Sorcerer's boots to stack as much ES as possible. And then for the implicits on the glove, you can get Lightning Exposure and Unnerve, which is best in slot. And then you can craft increased damage while leeching, which is always going to be up because you have Overleech. I said that really weird, but I don't know why I said it like that, but never mind. Anyway, and then for the boots, you can get Onslaught on kill here, or you can just like get an Onslaught Flask, doesn't really matter. Oh yeah, and then if you can get action speed on your boots, that would of course be good, because we don't go for the Trickster's action speed one, because the Frenzy Charge one is better in my opinion. And then for the amulet and rings, also pretty straightforward. I just have an Onyx amulet here, you know, +1 to lightning gems. You could probably get a +2 or even a +4 amulet with the new league mechanic next league. Like in theory, if you put like a +1 all, +1 lightning amulet into the quote unquote reflective mist or whatever, you can like double it and make it like +2/+2. That could be pretty interesting. And then for the anointment, you just take Heart of Thunder, which is, you know, big damage. And then you run 2 Opal Rings for optimal damage output, and then just try to get like Energy Shield and Conductivity on one of them. And then just like, if you can get a Crusader, another one of these, you can get added lightning damage against shocked enemies, which is decent. Otherwise, you can just like essence craft it with Wrath Essences or whatever. Try to get ES, Chaos Res, and damage. And then for the belt, recommend running Shaper or Crusader because it allows you to get percent max ES and also ES recovery rate, so that's pretty cool. And then you can also craft on Evasion Energy Shield on belts, which is greatly beneficial on this build. And then Flasks are just whatever. I chose to run Jade for Evasion, Quicksilver for movement, of course. Granite is optional, you could replace it with something else if you wanted to. And then Quartz to give phasing, which is going to be really important. And then just Life Flask. This build doesn't really have ailment immunity, which I'm kind of sad about. So we're just getting freeze immune from a flask, bleed immune on a flask. I have shock immune on a flask as well, and burning immune on a flask. Definitely not optimal, but I just couldn't really think of a good way to get ailment immunity. Maybe with like the new Grand Spectrum Jewel, but I don't know. And then Pantheon, just take whatever. Yeah, that's basically the build. Oh, another thing I want to talk about is freaking shock. So, contrary to what the skill is called, Shock Nova, I actually found that this skill doesn't actually shock a lot. This is the old gem data, and the new patch, this was changed to, it no longer has increased effective shock, but it instead has plus 10 to maximum shock. Which seems like really good at first, but then when you put in the numbers, it actually doesn't even shock for that much because like the base damage of Shock Nova is like pretty low. And I think that's to compensate for the fact that it hits twice. So without crit, if you go an Elemental Overload build without shock, your average hit is only like 300 or like 350. And most of your damage just comes from things like cast speed and the double hitting mechanic and Orbistorms. So your actual like big lightning hit is actually like not that big. So I put this into like the threshold, the shock threshold calculator, and I put in like 25 mil Cirrus's threshold, and I only got a 9% shock, which is like really sad. So I decided not to scale shock at all. I figured if my shock is only going to be 9%, like, may as well not even bother scaling shock. So I don't take static blows, I don't take breath of lightning. I basically try to not scale shock because I found that like scaling 20% increased effective shock would only increase my damage by like 50k or something ridiculous because my base shock was like so small, and there's no mechanic in Shock Nova that allows you to get a bigger shock. So I just said like, you know what, fuck it, I'm not even gonna go shock. There might be something you can do where you put like overcharge in some lightning skill, like Galvanic Field overcharge or Orbistorm's overcharge, Unbound Ailments, I don't know. Have to play around with it, but can't really know for sure without trying it yourself. Um, but yeah, that's just basically the build. And then in this POB, which I'll link below, I have a low life version here and a CI version as well. The low life version is generally better. It has roughly 20% more damage and 15% more life. But the trade-off, of course, oh, well, it also has 30% more damage. Well, wait, I ate my words. So the low life version has 5 million DPS and 7k ES with 1k life, so 8k EHP. The CI version has only 4k DPS, so that's like 25% less. I mean, 4 mil DPS, I'm getting tired. And of course, the CI version doesn't have any life, so it's like 14% less life. So you do gain life and damage by going low life, so I'd recommend doing that on this build. And then you can additionally take all these life nodes that also give ES, which is pretty nice. but then the trade-off is that you have to get chaos res on your gear, and you have to worry about only having a 5.5k chaos max hit, which is kind of annoying. So like when I'm gonna level this build, I'm definitely gonna just like start off as life and then go CI as soon as I can, once I get like discipline and stuff. And then once I get like end game, and once I get like my reservation wheels and my uh freaking mastery, which gives me 30% chaos damage does not bypass ES, then I'll probably switch over to CI for the to low life for the end game. But yeah, it's basically the build. Um, yeah, big whoop. Shock Nova self-cast Trickster. Think it'll actually be pretty decent. Definitely gonna run this at some point next league. I haven't decided if I'm gonna league start with this or not. Probably not, because like I think just there's better league starters like Lightning Strike. But I definitely want to play this as like a second build or something. So you may see an update on this channel at some point about that. But yeah, if you're curious about the build, I'll, link the POB, of course, in the description. Happy to hear about any feedback or comments or anything, since this is all largely just theorycraft at this point. But yeah, I think I've run out of things to say. Thanks for watching my video. Not sure when I'll be uploading another video, but yeah, bye.